Fanboys and fangirls, this is Jared here with another video from Fanboys Forever, and today it is my absolute pleasure to welcome the one, the only, Dave Baker.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for agreeing to this. I was so hyped up over the release of the Halloween Boy figure that I figured, now was the time. There it is. And I also had mine ready to roll as well. So
look at that.
Look at that.
Twin boys.
It doesn't get much better than that. But, there's been a lot of hype over this figure, and started noticing that there was a lot of talk online, especially in the action figure community. I could feel a certain sense of hype just for the design of the character, even for the people who didn't know who Halloween Boy was. What is, you think, the easiest, simplest explanation of who Halloween Boy is as a character?
An action adventure comic that I make. It's kind of like a deconstructionist meta approach to kind of pulp tropes from the 1930s. So the book is somewhat similar in approach to things like Doc Savage or The Shadow or The Phantom, but kind of tore down and then rebuilt for a modern audience. So it examines some of the kind of problematic aspects of those characters and their lineage, while hopefully pushing it into new and unseen areas. There's 7 issues that have been published so far. Everyone is written and drawn by me. And the kind of high concept of the character is that he is the last in a long dynastic lineage of adventurers who thinks of himself as the patron saint of the impossible. So he's raised on this floating skull-shaped island off of Earth's lower orbit, and he's raised by robots. There's no humans that he's in contact with, so he's kind of raised with this idea like, oh, I'm the kind of scion of the last vestige of like morality and ethics in the universe, and I have to like help people that are in these no-win scenarios. So each adventure is somebody coming to him being like, hey, shit's really messed up, bro, can you help me? And then he'll try and sort it out with them or for them, or carry on these quests that are theoretically only someone with a death wish would take on. And then over the course of the first arc, there's kind of an interlocking mystery that unravels about him and his origin, and maybe some of that idea that he's the last of a long line of dynastic heroes might not be true.
I'd recently got on to Dave's website and heydavebaker.com. I'm going to go ahead and drop that for you so that, I can plug it for you right there. But seriously, I've been, eyeing these graphic novels for forever, and Dave self-publishes these. For now, there is a hardcover collection I saw a few days ago get announced, so congratulations on that. Well-deserved. Get on the site, though. You don't want to have to wait till next year to get that hardcover collection, and go ahead and pick up that first storyline. We'll talk more about Halloween Boy in just a moment, but I wanted to briefly give you a chance, Dave, to explain just a little bit about who you are and your background just for a moment. I know that in this particular interview, we'll focus more on the character, but I at least wanted people to have an idea of who you were and a little bit about your background.
Sure. My name's Dave. I'm originally from Arizona. I live in Los Angeles. I work in the glittering industry of Hollywood. I write and draw comics as well. I've published a bunch of graphic novels. I published one with Dark Horse in 2021, I think, called Everyone is Tulip. They got nominated for an Eisner. I collaborate frequently with the artist Nicole Gu. She and I have a book from Simon & Schuster called Forest Hills Bootleg Society. And I recently, last year, I put out a book called Mary Tyler Moorhawk, which is a kind of hybrid novel, graphic novel about a TV show from 100 years in the future that nobody seems to remember. It did very well, thankfully. I got placed on Forbes's Best Graphic Novels of the Year, starred review, Publishers Weekly. I think it was an honorable mention on the Best Graphic Novels of the Year in the New York Times. So I'm a lifelong dork is the answer. I'm really cool.
So wait a minute, your secret origin is the same as mine? But I didn't get as far as you did in life, Dave. Wait.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a common thread for white guys with glasses of a certain age.
Yeah, it tends to happen. I can't explain it, but
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
Um, one little piece of autobiographical kind of information I do want to get at before we move on into a little bit more of the character is your connection to action figures and toys. Because of course, here on Fanboys Forever, that's mostly our thing. Actually, it's mostly it's a lot of He-Man stuff too, alongside of Operation Monster Force and GI Joe stuff and things like that. So, tell me just a little bit about how action figures kind of influenced your takes on fantasy.
When I was a small child, all I wanted to do was design toys. And in fact, that's how I got into making things, is I would make small kind of like my own action figures where I would kind of sculpt them myself, or I would kind of like take toys and then put putty on them and make them their own things. For a long time, I was convinced I was going to be a toy designer. And then, ironically, my father was on a business trip when I was probably about 10, and he sat next to a guy who worked in the toy industry. And that guy was like, "Oh, if your son wants to be a toy designer, he should read The Toy Wars," which is a very dry adult nonfiction book about the behind the scenes of Hasbro. I'm gonna now stop doing this bit where I'm just holding up dumb shit on my desk. But
But
he
you
was
got to
like,
prove your cred.
right, yeah, of course. Yeah. Actually, this is a prototype. This isn't even a fully produced thing. This is a prototype for a Dracula Satanic Hill toy, which is he's the villain from Mary Tyler Moore that we've been trying to make for a couple of years. He keeps kind of getting knocked back in the priority of things to do, as they say.
Well, that's where my eyes lit up because I recognized that character design, which I absolutely love. And how is he different than Dracula?
So he's the central antagonist of the comic strip Mary Tyler Moorhawk. So
Oh, okay.
the book is half and half, right? It's
Right.
the book Mary Tyler Moorhawk is half a guy in the future who's a journalist who's obsessed with a TV show that was adapted from a comic called Mary Tyler Moorhawk, who's obsessed with a dude named Dave Baker. That guy was a cartoonist and he made the TV show. The TV show got taken away from him and he went crazy, lived on a farm for 50 years, and made supposedly 100 issues of Mary Tyler Moorhawk comics that no one's ever seen. And so this journalist is trying to track down this guy and find this story, and because he wants to read these comics. And over the course of this long circuitous detective story, he starts finding all these weird pieces of information and things that are like, oh, is there more to this story? And then interspersed in between that, you're reading the last 4 issues of Mary Tyler Moorhawk the comic. So it revolves around the kind of resurgence of this character named Dracula Satanic Hill, who is a suit of armor that was imbued with the consciousness of a human, basically pulled from hell. Basically, there was a sorcerer who tried to go to hell and come back, and he's trapped there. And then to get back, he puts his soul inside of a suit of armor, and this suit of armor becomes a despotic leader of this nation state and is attempting to reconstruct his body. And so that's one of the storylines in that comic, is like Mary Tyler Moorhawk and her family of adventurers trying to stop this guy from resurrecting himself.
Maybe it's time for Big Bad Workshop to fold that in to the storyline.
I think that'd be great.
Force. I mean, you could make it work. In some form of it could work. And Mary Tyler Moorhawk is my next stop after Halloween Boy, because I've read so much about it and some interviews that you've done, and it just sounds so intriguing that I've absolutely got to get into it. The whole lost media thing, that is, of course, as you'd said, white guys with glasses. It tends to be our thing.
Yeah.
Spent way too many hours on YouTube researching such things.
I thought I was going to be a toy designer when I was a child. And then I realized, like, oh, toy designers don't get to design the characters. They take other people's work and make toy representations of that work. And I wanted to make the thing. And so I kind of not even necessarily gave up on that dream. I just was like, oh, I want to go to the source. I want to make the original thing and then have toys be made of it. I was also, I'm in the right age bracket to love Todd McFarlane. And when that guy was like, this is my guy, he's a little spooky guy, and then we're going to have toys. Like, It's literally like just, you know, it's not that far off.
Like in your design process for the characters, was that something that was kind of in your mind? Like what would look like a cool toy, and did that inspire some of the design work, or was there something, I guess, overriding that?
The short answer is no. The
Mhm.
long answer is that way lies madness. If you're
Mhm.
trying to tell a story and make something emotionally resonant and then building it to be a toy,
Mhm.
I don't think it has the same effect as if you're accurately representing a character that could have, you know, that is quote unquote toyotic. I mean, frankly, I just kind of draw that way. Like I just
Mhm.
draw. I'm interested in weird character designs. Like I love Keita Amamiya. He's like my favorite guy ever. And I love his sense of his design language. I like Shotaro Ishinomori, and I like his kind of weird, you know, kind of cyclical shapes and triangular shapes interwoven together. And also, I think you can see over the course of the first arc when I started drawing Halloween Boy, his ears were really small. They're like this, and then as the story kept going, they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and frankly, I'm sure there's some sort of metaphor in there about like his confidence is kind of, you know, rigid, and he thinks of himself as this kind of like upstanding moral figure, and there's something having to do with triangles in there or something. I don't know. Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. I don't know. I'm sure there's something. It was just a weird design language thing that I just kind of stumbled upon. I was like, oh, this is cool. And also, like, I love animation and animation history, and you know, they always tell you design for the silhouette. So I mean, I think that that's a truism for a reason. You know, when you see Halloween Boy, it's like, oh yeah, he's a guy, but he's got giant triangle ears. And when you see Frankennoid, it's like it's a giant circle with four arms. Like you don't even need to know that it's a Frankenstein head. It's just
Hmm.
circle with four arms. You know.
It's funny, when I recorded my figure review for Halloween Boy, I had a bunch of the NECA heads laying around for the Frankenstein monster, and I would just put them all around in different spots because it was the closest thing I had, to the little mini Frankennoids from the
Yeah,
first story. And so people who are really into Halloween Boy might look back there and be like, hey, look, there's those little Frankenoid guys back there. So that was about as close as I could get
yeah.
at the time.
That's my goal is to convince Big Bad Workshop to make a Frankenoid and then a bunch of little Frankenoids. I think it'd be really fun.
I would love to see their kind of their styling laid over your styling in a way, because when you look at the Halloween Boy figure that they've come up with, it is the design, it is your design from the book, but by virtue of some reuse and things that they do, he also has, I guess, more of a grittier paramilitary vibe, which, it's just through a different lens. And I think that you demonstrate that well in a lot of your essays where you put some of the fan art for Halloween Boy, and you can see all these different kind of design languages where the silhouette, the overall design, the mask, and everything, it still works. And I think that that is a calling card of really good design. So hats off to you for coming up with the whole, like, collar thing, because to me that's kind of instant, and it makes me really happy that it didn't turn out to just be a Phantom thing, that it got to be your own original thing.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and I think so. The thing you're referencing, if somebody doesn't know, is that the character Halloween Boy started because I was trying to convince. I was working as an editor at a comic book company, and I was trying to convince King Features, who control the rights to the Phantom, to give us the license to do some stuff with. And I basically pitched this idea of like, what if there was a Phantom in the far future who'd been like context laundered away from the lineage of heroicism that the Phantom has kind of cultivated, and he has the myth of the Phantom, but he is not connected to any of them. And then over the course of the story, he would have to reconcile with the fact that maybe there were some phantoms that like took advantage of the people of Bengala, or used the people of Bengala to build this giant skull cave with ill compensated labor, quote unquote, wink,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, like, because it is a weird colonialist. Like, I love the Phantom, but I'm
Oh,
not
sure.
in love with the Phantom that I can't reconcile the fact that there's weird colonialist overtones, to put it
Absolutely.
mildly.
I feel exactly the same as you do because, I'm a huge Phantom guy. But over the years, as I got older, I guess I became increasingly, there was elements that were making me uncomfortable, and they should. I absolutely love your take. I mean, too bad for them, I guess, but awesome for you that it worked out this way. This is great.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because at first I was a little, understandably bummed. And
Absolutely.
and then after I kind of started thinking about it more, I was like, oh, maybe if I just make this, I can own it. And I've had there were two names that I was going to call him. He was either going to be Citizen Satan or Halloween Boy, and I still might do Citizen
Yeah.
Satan at one point. But like, that I'd had those names in my sketchbooks for years because I was just so surprised that nobody had made a character named
Mhm.
Halloween Boy. It seems right there. Like and
Right.
maybe there is one, and I don't know. But I Googled around because I was like, is there a Halloween Boy?
Does
I,
he exist?
yeah, exactly.
I'm fascinated by your choice also to have Halloween Boy's primary color. Of course, it makes sense with a name. I mean, duh, of course. But I love that he has this primary orange color. And I do think that that helps him stand out from a whole lot of pulp heroes characters in fiction, that you have this guy in this orange jumpsuit that's not a prisoner of some sort. Although, if we read really deeply, we can say that Halloween Boy is a prisoner of his lineage. So,
100%. That was totally my intention. But I
mhm.
didn't realize that until issue 2. If you look
Mm,
at the cover to
mhm.
issue 1, because originally I was like, he's an alien, so he'll have blue skin and
Right.
he'll be in a purple jumpsuit because he's the Phantom. And then, yeah, there we go. See, that's what I was
I,
originally.
I was kind of wondering about that, honestly. I thought, okay, was that originally his intention? And then so that is a thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. I
Yeah.
mean, and then around like basically it was when I was drawing the final spread in that issue where it's him, he touches this crystal to his forehead and he has this vision of all these other people who've been a part of this lineage. And I was like,
Gorgeous.
"Yeah,
Absolutely love it. Mhm.
thank you. Maybe he can be an alien, but he won't have blue skin because it instantly separates him in a way that it is not conducive to a narrative because you want him to be othered without
Mm.
being visually othered. There
Yeah.
are characters that are visually othered in the book, but not him because his whole thing is like trying to parse, why do I feel this way? Why am I such an outsider when I should be able to be accepted and I should accept myself? And that's when I kind of realized it was that. And also, I was reading an interview with Mike Mignola where he was talking about Mark Chiarello's colors on the original Seed of Destruction miniseries. That he told Mark Chiarello when he was coloring it that the only red in the book should be Hellboy's skin. Everything else should be complementary colors because he wanted the eye to immediately go to Hellboy, and he didn't want that to kind of conflict in other places, which is one of the reasons why the fire in the first printing is blue, I think.
Oh.
Because they were like trying to not have Hellboy get lost in all of that fire when
Mhm.
he's fighting Rasputin.
Yeah.
And that made a lot of sense to me. And I was like, oh, interesting. So what does that mean for me? Because interior art is all orange. Like so that's not necessarily an issue for right now. If there's ever a full color edition, that'll be a discussion point. But like, so what does that mean for like branding? Do I want him to be purple? No, because that's too close to the fan. Like my initial thought was like make him
Mhm.
like a Phantom, and then after I started making it and pushed it further away, I was like, oh, you know what? He should not be the Phantom. I mean, he is the Phantom, but like let's not do that. And then Halloween orange. Oh, it's right there,
Mhm.
orange. And then and the prisoner jumpsuit thing, and it's a paramilitary suit, and that being orange would be a cool juxtaposition because usually they're green. So like, it all kind of fell into place.
One of the things that I really love about reading through these issues is to look at your style of art. It's what I would call pure pencil, kind of that pure kind of, you see the gradient and you see, the cross hatching and the shading that you do. It's very inspiring because I've noticed this thing that you do. I'm sure it's been done, more. And of course, I've seen things like it, but I've never quite seen it the way you do it, about how you have everything when it's from a certain distance is more geometry and silhouette based in a way that I hadn't seen before. And then when you really want to emphasize something, or you need us to understand something visually, you kind of do a push in of super detail. and then that geometry kind of carries it through. Maybe I'm being a little over analytical there, but I love it because it flows. There's a visual language to it.
No, I really appreciate you pointing that out, because the way I like to think about the way I draw is almost kind of like a topographic map, where I'm not necessarily drawing a literal reality in the way that like a lot of representational line-based illustrators are. So for me, if I'm going to draw like a face, there's usually kind of like 4 or 5 kind of geometric three-dimensional like topographic shapes layered on top of each other. And depending on, like you're talking about, depending on how I need to pull someone's eye or move something across the page, that's when I use details or spot blacks or colors very, hopefully, very decisively to try and move you from point A to point B with that.
Yeah, and I think it works beautifully. One of the things that I wanted to hit on was when it comes to artists, and it's funny because one of the last essays I read in your books answered my question, sort of, but I guess I'll expand upon it. When I was looking at the way that you did kind of what I would call mass art or epic art, it reminded me very much of Mobius. You know, in the early issues and a lot of the issues, and then I was looking through one of your essays, and I saw where you'd put a pin on the grave of Mobius and things, and I guess that answers my question right there, huh?
Well, to a certain degree, and also I love Jean-Gérard Mobius. I love his work. I mean, I don't think that's a particularly incendiary take. Like, I mean, the man was a genius, and I think he shaped global culture in a way that Americans just refuse to admit. It's really shocking to me. He was a literal genius and reinvented himself like 4 or 5 times over the course of his life, which is something that is so starkly impressive to me. As someone who thinks about longevity for artistic endeavors, it's very difficult, especially once you hit your 40s and 50s, to kind of boil yourself down and then reboot yourself in a way that's applicable to an audience. Most people kind of end up drifting off into this weird gray area of irrelevance and kind of cultural waste bin, which is very depressing to me, especially in comics. Most people end up as a master without a masterpiece. It's really, really sad. But I think Mobius on multiple fronts was an inspiration for Halloween Boy. The deserts, you know, in his blueberry work, his shape language, the designs that he did specifically for the I know Bill Stout a little bit, the production designer for Masters of the Universe. I wouldn't say well, but I've been to his studio a couple times to do life drawings, and I've talked to him at shows and whatnot. And his stories about working with Mobius and Mobius's impact on it, and also the designs that Mobius did for Masters of the Universe, the live action feature, are very inspirational to me. I really like, especially his Teela drawing. I like his Teela drawing more than I like the Teela costume in the movie. And also, just to put a pin on it, Mobius's father abandoned him when he was really young, and he kind of serially through his career was finding these male mentors and father figures that he was looking up to. So I feel like there was a parallel there between that and what Halloween Boy is kind of going through, is this like person who's chasing the legacy of a father figure and trying to live up to this idea, and then when it actually comes time to confront the actual man who is his father, it's not at all what he would have expected, you know?
Is it okay with you for us to dive into some spoiler things about that first storyline?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Sure. And also for anybody who's watching, if you do want to maybe, you know, skip over this part or, you know, go on, I'll put a time code at the bottom when I edit to let you know when we're done talking about the conclusion of the first storyline. The last, the Halloween Boys, you have Halloween Boy's father show up, and I was wanting to ask, not only is the design work brilliant with the headpiece and how it adds to the cowl, almost as if, you know, okay, well, Halloween Boy is kind of like a junior version. He's still on the Halloween Boy rank. I'm curious, is that an intentional thing? Around the beginning of the storyline, we see Halloween Boy kind of discourage Carrion from vengeance, from taking life, you know, for vengeance, and then to see Halloween Boy, at least what it seemed to me was to see him burn his father up.
Yeah,
so that is an intentional, like, you know, completion of that part of that story.
Yeah, and it's something I was a little conflicted about, but I felt like I wanted to push the character into the idea is that he's always attempting to get out of no-win scenarios, right? And a moral no-win scenario is, being held to account for for hypocrisy of like, do as I say, not as I do, whatever. And I felt like that was an interesting point to both show the immaturity of the character and also to show like, look, dude, it's one thing to, take vengeance on these people who've wronged you. It's another thing when it's like space. Yeah, I don't want to say the character's name because it's probably going to be on YouTube and we'll get demonetized or whatever.
Sure, but yeah,
you can infer what I'm saying.
He's got to be the worst deadbeat dad of all time. I mean, from what I've seen, like I've never usually there's at least a moment in these stories of some sort of tenderness, some sort of outreach, like, oh, I see your skills have, greatly increased, or oh, you've constructed your own lightsaber. Like they're turning the shot. Yeah. But there is nothing like that for Halloween Boy's father. He's just awful. I definitely see what you were going for there. I guess getting into your second storyline, which I've read the first part of, but have not got to read the second part of yet. I absolutely love how you have kind of evolved the art a little bit, and it almost seems a little moodier. There's a little bit more shadow and things to it. Was that something you intentionally did, or did you just find yourself kind of just transforming as an artist as you went?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, right? This second arc, which is titled Evolve or Die, is kind of about these ideas, both metatextually and literally, where one of the like raison d'etre of the arc is like, can I take this pulp character and put him in a place that normal superhero comics can't go, right? Superheroes can't effect actual change because they have to be agents of the status quo because the books need to last for decades and decades and decades. Like if Superman really existed in the world, would he let a Rwandan genocide happen? I kind of doubt it. You know what I mean? And he would probably go there and like make, carve a path from the sea into, areas that need water with his laser vision. And now there's, oh my gosh, all these people can farm and they can live. You know what I mean? And the downside of that, or the scary part of that, is like, do we leave that up to one person? No, we don't want that. That's called fascism. It's not good. But in the way that I've hopefully built the quote unquote no win scenario of this arc, it's, Halloween Boy, he's on this alien world. The mission wraps up. The mission he's on wraps up. And as they're leaving, he encounters a small child who's like basically a street urchin starving to death. And he's like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Like, there's all these people who need food. That is a worthy cause that I'm just ignoring. And so this idea of the Evolve or Die arc is Halloween Boy and Carrion setting up a kind of like a series of ostensibly stargates. They're called abyssal gates throughout this ring of planets that are controlled by fascistic governments in order to facilitate free trade and help people get access to food. And so it's a series of kind of one and done adventures where he's going to different planets, sorting out different problems and trying to build these gates so that at the end of it, then they can link all the gates together and people can have access to food. When was the last time you saw the X-Men? They go to space all the time. When was the last time you saw them being like, who are these broccoli people that the Phoenix killed? Maybe those guys need some help?
They're too wrapped up in their own bowl. They're too wrapped up in their own trauma. I was deeply affected. I remember I got interrupted. I was helping my wife out in the part where the street urchin comes up to Halloween Boy, and I realized then that I kind of was I was really honed in on what Halloween Boy's interaction with the child would be. I instantly kind of leaned forward a little bit, and I think that was really effective because you had this great, kind of science fiction adventure, like opening action scene, if you will, the movie or whatever. And then you have this small moment and you see Halloween Boy sulking, and which you do some great sulking art at the beginning of that where he's really out of it. I've got to show at least this. Some of my favorite sulking art I've seen in forever.
That's a high compliment. Yeah.
Look at this beautiful sulking artwork that Dave did. This is awesome. It's so shadowy and moody, and it's like, I've been here a few times, as a teenager. But So speaking of age, in your mind, do you conceive Halloween Boy to be like what? How old is Halloween Boy? Like in your head?
Yeah, I think he's probably late 20s, early 30s, I
Mhm.
think. Um, but if there's a movie producer listening, he's however old he needs to be to get that star to sign on, you know.
That's right. Yeah.
Because but I mean,
Maybe.
I think the thing is like, regardless of what his like numerical age is, he's
Mhm.
kind of immature, right? Like the whole idea is like he's looking for this male role. Like he's certain about things in a way that only a young person is certain about them.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so that kind of character predisposition gets kind of like worn down over the course of that first arc, and then in the second arc it's more kind of like pragmatism and like, what am I doing with my life, how do I really affect change?
Mhm.
Because like you even see like in the first arc he's living on Hades Island by himself, right? He lives on this floating skull-shaped island alone with his weird Frankenstein head butler ostensibly, and like that's it, it's this massive kind of cave encrusted asteroid with a giant mountain head that is a skull, and there's these weird dilapidated buildings. What's with those buildings? I don't know what those buildings are. Like, did a bunch of people used to live here and now they don't, or did he just build them because he was bored? What the is the deal here? And then over the course of those first 5 issues, he ends up saving this group of people called the Wayfinders, and like kind of weirdly adopting people. He kind of like, in a found family to the maximalist degree, builds a culture on Hades Island to the degree that one of the major kind of elements of this second arc is kind of trying to reckon with, what does it mean to live on this place? Are these people citizens? Do they have a shared culture? Is it a melting pot like how America is? Or are there sects of people that don't get along? Like, how does this work? And what happens when Halloween Boy isn't there to like corral everybody? You know, like, do they deify him? Do they think of him as a despot? Like, what is the internal social dynamic of people on the island, and how does that change when he's off trying to help other people and they're like, bro, we are here, what the
I think that's so interesting because then you start blurring the lines between a superhero and politician and and everything else that someone if someone like this really existed, what they would actually have to be, who would they be to everyone, what would they feel like, which parts of that identity would they feel like they had to fulfill, and which ones could they let go? And I think that is an absolutely fascinating way to approach that. So I cannot wait to read the rest of the arc. I have to point this out. Some of my favorite things in comics are anytime that we get a big diagram drawing of a lair. And this, of course, would happen in DC sometimes with the Batcave, and throughout the 80s and 70s and things. The way you were talking about, the geometry in your artwork when it's kind of far off and things, it was just vague enough to where it kind of let my imagination run wild with all the different sections that could be in Hades Island and what all it is, while still giving me enough of a suggestion to kind of, feel out what each room would be or what it might be.
yeah.
So when I was designing like my just little background for the figure review, I'm like, oh wow, this could really just be whatever I needed it to be with some skulls in the background, and it could fit in that aesthetic somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you hit the nail on the head with just some skulls, because
Yeah.
like I feel like the dominant theme, both kind of visually and metaphorically, is the skull for the book. Like, not only does he live in a skull island, but like so much of the book revolves around like emotions. For a weird pulp throwback book, it's weirdly emotional. You know what I mean? It's weirdly like, am I doing the right thing? You know, determinism, father and son relationships. But also, I just love spooky shit and I like drawing skulls.
Mhm.
So there's just a lot of them on that front as well.
There's something about skull motifs. I'm like you. I'm just drawn to it, no matter what it is, any character. I love the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera.
Oh
I
yeah.
love his regular look, but I'm even crazier about the Mask of the Red Death look that he's got when he shows up to the ball, and there's all the weird hand painted cell work and stuff, and I'm just like, this is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
there's a scene in, I don't remember if it's the first one or the second one. I think it might be the second issue of Evolve or Die, where Halloween Boy goes to a, oh yeah, it's the second one, where he goes to a ball on the planet where his like perennial ex-girlfriend will they won't they character lives, and he's
mhm.
wearing, it's, I didn't literally, but I basically like just ripped that off. I was like, he's gonna wear a tuxedo and a big cape, and he's gonna walk in, and they're gonna say it's Halloween Boy, and he's gonna walk down a bunch of stairs, and everyone's gonna be dancing. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm very happy to hear that. It thrills me that you made a reference to William Stout right there, someone whose work I've been following for a lot of years. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to grab a painting I have over here. I don't get to paint very often, but I do want you to see this. So I was trying to design some of my own poster artwork for the movie a little while back, and
Mm.
I'm totally crazy about the way that Castle Grayskull looks in the movie a
Mm.
lot more than it does, in the show and all of that. So if you
Oh,
look,
that
it's kind of hard to see.
rules.
Let me turn my blur off. Actually, uh, yeah,
I got like 2 seconds of it, and then the blur like kicked in. I
yeah.
was
Then
like,
the
no.
blur sets in. Let's see. Okay, and recording effects, blah blah blah. Then we'll, like I said, I'll get rid of all this wonderful awkwardness about me changing settings. So much of what I do on YouTube is me cutting out milliseconds of like awkward silence and just being like, okay, now it's going to sound, because I'm not on camera for the figure review. And it's like, okay, now it will sound like I'm an actual human if I cut out these, few seconds of pauses. Okay, here we go. So in the background, I have my version after looking at some reference photos and things of the castle. And it's always been something that I've just been crazy over, just something I've been like really into. So I guess I have to ask you, was that ever a consideration, or when you were thinking about the city aspects of Hades Island? To me, that visual, the map painting, which, if I could own one thing from the Masters Universe movie, it'd be like, can I have the Castle Grayskull map painting? Is that laying around?
Yeah.
Like, was that in the conversation anywhere when you were thinking about Skull?
It totally was.
Mhm.
It's honestly, it's the movie Castle
Mhm.
Grayskull matte painting. It's the design from the 2000 whatever Castle Grayskull, the Cartoon
Yep.
Network one. And then it's just the fact that the Phantom lives in a place called the Skull Cave, which is a mountain that has a giant skull on it. Like, if you're going to steal from somebody, steal from the best, right?
Absolutely.
I kind of don't even know why I started putting those buildings there. I think because originally I was going to have like other people living on the island with him. And
Mhm.
then I was like, oh, you know what? It actually makes more sense to start with like he's a loner and he hates everybody. And then Carrion like opens up his heart to the idea of other people, and their relationship is what kind of unlocks this like he's going to be a father to an entire nation because nobody was a father to him type of like breaking the cycle idea.
Do you see yourself, and of course, we have those images that we talked about earlier where you see all of the previous Halloween Boy kind of lineage and things. Do you see yourself in the course of the stories ever having any sort of flashback to some of those characters and what degree of evil that they may or may not have been? Is that something you kind of lay the groundwork for?
Yeah, I totally would. There's a few flashbacks in the first arc, but they're very few and far between.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, and they're not all evil, right? Like there's kind of like
Mhm.
two sects that form out of them, the ones that start following the Serpent King, and then the ones that I think they're called like the Midnight Order or something. It's been a minute since I've read the book, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
there's the girl with the bat for a hand, like she's like
Mhm.
the leader of that, the kind of like insurgent good sect of them. But ultimately, all of those motherfuckers died, right? Like
They're all ghosts.
they're all ghosts now. Yeah, they're all ghosts. And I've drawn them a couple times in like I think in issue 13 there's a sequence where we see them. But they're just like hanging around as ghosts. It's not like a full story with them. But I totally would love to do something with them. It's really honestly more like if there's more of an appetite, because I've drawn all 13 issues now of this. It's going to be these two arcs. Oni's going to put out two hardcovers, and then we'll see. Is there appetite to do more, or is this going to be it for a little while? I'm going to just go do something else and then come back, or it just kind of depends. If it sells gangbusters and there's a movie deal, yeah, dude, you can bet your ass that there's going to be more of that.
Well, I have a lot of sway with those guys, so it's
Right.
fantastic that you're here.
I think the issue for me, it's not even an issue, but I think just the thing to be cognizant about with me for those characters and for the overarching idea that there's this dynastic lineage that he's a part of, is that you don't want that to be the only idea. Like, the thing that's cool about Spider-Man or Superman or Batman or any of these long-running characters is that because people are always bringing new ideas, like, you don't want it to be too iterative, in terms of, look, I love Hellboy and I love some of these things, and Hellboy is actually a perfect example of somebody that did it right. Every villain in Hellboy is not a demon. You know what I mean? Whereas maybe in Spawn, Hellspawn, Medieval Spawn, Future Spawn, Spawn who takes a bath, Cowboy Spawn. You know what I mean? Like, the approach to the aesthetic is, I have this one idea, and how can I twist and turn that idea from like 15 different angles, which is cool. I like some of that stuff, but I also think it dilutes the specialness of the main guy. Like, if it was Spawn and a ton of other characters that have nothing to do with just Spawn, that to me is really interesting. And I made a concerted decision in this second arc to knock over the two things that I thought I needed to make a Halloween Boy story. So there is a central antagonist, but kind of not really. Like, there's no central antagonist, and there's no stuff that has to do with his father or the legacy stuff. I really wanted it to be like, can you take the two pillars away and rebuild it again? Which again goes into the idea of, like, he's going to do things that aren't stereotypical to these types of projects. Perfect example, the CW Flash show. I love that show.
Mm-hmm.
But I also really wish that the only person who ran fast was the Flash.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I remember when we started getting to like Savitar and things like that I was starting to be like, okay, all right, we're starting to, really, and then it went a lot crazier later on with even more. And I was like, ooh, can't we have him fight like the Weather Wizard a little more or something like that? But they got into that Speed Force drama and just about couldn't unhook from it. There's only so many ways to do that.
And that's why I'm very reticent about going back to that pool again too quickly, because there's so much stuff there. There's 500 years of weird Halloween Boy ancestor villain hero dynamics that you can unpack. Mm-hmm. And to me, that stuff is almost more interesting as like an undergirding to the universe. Like, Wolverine is so much more interesting as the man without a past.
Absolutely.
And then he fought in the Colonial War, and then he was in World War II. Like, well, that's not true. Him and Captain America in World War II, I like that. But just about everything else, I'm like, I don't want to know this. I don't want to know that, like, the groundskeeper on his palatial estate was basically Sabretooth, even though he wasn't Sabretooth. Like,
I remember when all that came down the pike, and honestly, I was kind of heartbroken because I was thinking, why would you? Of course, I know the reason why they would do it. It's for sales and it's for movie tie-ins and things when they did Origin and all that. But at the same time, leave it mysterious, leave it wide open. Don't rail so much for your characters. So I really appreciate that you say that, and it definitely makes me feel better about the future possibilities for Halloween Boy. When it comes to action figures, getting back around to that topic, I remember one time I read in an interview that you said that you had maybe kit bashed some Halloween Boy figures before you ever had this particular deal with Big Bad Workshop. Do you still have him around?
You want to see it? Hold on one second. All right, so I've got a bunch, but I just grabbed 3. I've got a Frankennoid.
Oh, that's incredible. That's awesome.
I got a Frankennoid, and then I've got I'm not gonna put that down on that book. And then I've got a Dree Lazenby, one of my favorite pet characters that nobody else seems to give a shit about, but I love him, and I put him in everything. He's in Mary Tyler Moore Hawk too. I just love drawing these weird heads like
Mhm.
him like floating around and shit. Yeah, I don't know. And then this was I think was like halfway done with the first issue maybe, and I started with this guy.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
You can see what I mean about the ears, right? Like they're so much smaller than I would than I would normally do. And it's so funny because the guy that I was working with as a sculptor was not a toy sculptor. This was kind of just like a hobby that I did for about 6 months, where I would just kind of find younger ZBrush or Maya sculptors on TikTok, and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm fucking around with making some toys. Do you want to make some designs, and then I'll 3D print them and paint them, and I don't know, maybe it'll turn into something, maybe it won't." And I found this guy who's super nice. His name was Triple D Printing, DDD Printing, and he was making helmets. I found him making like Iron Man helmets and like Stormtrooper helmets and stuff, and I was like, oh, but they were like kind of wonky in an interesting way, and I was like, oh, are you like, you're not just taking these files off, you're like making this? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, cool. Do you want to do some sculpting for some toy stuff? And he was like, yeah, I do. And so I would send him designs, and then he would sculpt them, and I'd give notes, and then I feel like Frankennoid is our magnum opus. I feel like he really got my kind of like the cheek structure, the nose looks like my drawings, and this hair like bloop, bloop, bloop thing looks really great. And yeah, I did a bunch of them. I did basically all of the primary cast of Mary Tyler Moorhawk, and then I did most of the cast of the first arc of Halloween Boy and a couple other random characters. I did an Illuminatus as well. Oh yeah, you've gotten to him. He's in the first arc. Yeah, I did an Illuminatus and a Carrion and I did a Saber too. I did a Saber.
Oh,
he's huge.
awesome.
He's like this big, but he's not painted, so I didn't show him. He's still just the gray of the printer.
I love that Saber came back near the end of that first storyline, because what a beautiful design, and right in the nick of time. You guys will see what we mean.
Yeah, I put him at the end of volume 2 as well, but it's a much more like, yeah, I haven't forgotten. There's a dinosaur. Yeah. I haven't forgotten, because the cast is so large at this point. Like I never intended it I intended it to be like a Hellboy style book where it was a guy walking around doing stuff. And it has just evolved into this massive, like, there's like 20 characters now, which is like, it's cool, but it's a lot to juggle.
I'm so impressed by how visually distinct so many of these characters are. And I know that I'm always really thrilled when I get to like cover art that shows me that a certain character's colors are not like what I expected. Like with Carrion, I kind of just assumed she was just a Caucasian, kind of alien, like Mantis from the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then to see she was blue, I was like, oh, that's so much better. And then to see deep, I'm trying to say his name correctly. The guy with
Lazenby, yeah.
Yes, to see that, oh, he's actually purple, and it was like, oh, that's 10 times better. And so it does make me curious about the possibility of a colored edition later on.
Yeah,
I hope that's something you get to do.
Yeah, I would love to do that, but here's the thing: I would love for someone else to do that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Like with some guidance, be like, okay, this is
100%,
right.
100%. Yeah, I think it would be really fun. I think it would look cool. But it's everything I can do just to draw and write and letter and single tone this thing,
Well, your workflow must be just, there must be some moments of kind of being a little overwhelmed by it a little bit, when you're staring down some of this stuff. I mean,
dude, you don't even know, Jared. I'm in like I'm on the 10-yard line. I'm so close to being done with it, and I'm just like,
it's just, I just can't imagine, because I get winded even just thinking about it, like how on earth are you? And I can see your pencil bearing down in some of those drawings, the way they're shaded. And I'm just like, man, this is blood, sweat, and tears. This is nuts and bolts. And I love to see the art look like that, and not just, inked to the point of sanitation,
Yeah.
to where you actually see the line drawing in there. So I think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
If you had your druthers, would you rather, in a perfect world, would you rather see Halloween Boy be an animation thing or a live action thing if he were to be adapted?
It's an interesting question because I think when I had first started, I would have said like, "Oh, animation all the way."
Mhm.
But then after seeing this guy, you know, like that, like I mean, that translates, I think, to a live action show or a live action movie like pretty well. Whereas my drawing, I think it's interesting because I didn't think of that when we started sculpting this stuff. Bill at Big Bad Workshop and Fresh Monkey was extremely supportive and really, wanted me to be involved. And when I was giving notes on the design, was really the best version of he allowed me to be involved possible. He was really like, this is your guy, whatever you want. And because initially, and it wasn't even a bad solution, but initially, the idea that the sculptor came up with was almost kind of more like a Wolverine cowl, where it was like, this shape was here, and then the wings went up like this. So on his chin, it was almost like two separate ears that would then come back and go up like this. And I
Mhm.
think that's actually not a bad solution for what it is, but also it's not dumb enough. You know, it needs to be dumb. It needs to be like,
It
no,
needs to be like a thing.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this
Um,
this guy needs to like be careful when he walks through doors. Yeah. Like it needs to be stupid. It needs to be the top of his ear, the bottom of his chin, and meeting out in an isosceles triangle.
I like
And
how I got one kind of ripped off. But seriously, I love how the one was kind of like, I
yeah,
thought that was some
yeah,
great.
his dad's like weird magic, like taloned hand, like slices one at the end. Yeah.
There is a certain malleability to Halloween Boy that I really appreciate because, like a lot of these great pulp heroes, a lot of these great legendary comic heroes, it turns out that now that he has been transferred into a different continuity, into a different format with a figure in a more realistic look, it still works. And like you said, it is kind of surprising to think that he would, but it's that weird magic that goes on with a character like that.
Yeah, and all respect to the sculptors at Big Bad. I think Arlen is one of them, and I think two other sculptors worked on him. But I didn't have much. I mean, I talked to them through Bill, so there was, like I would give notes to Bill. Bill would talk to the sculptors, and I think he was just doing that to make sure that everybody was polite and nothing got weird or
Yeah.
whatever. Because especially because that was the first time that we were all working together. I would assume in a future scenario, we would all be working a little bit more closely. But Arlen is an amazing sculptor. He sculpts a lot of the Operation Monster Force stuff. And I just feel so thankful that they really took the time and really tried to make Halloween Boy what he should be. I mean, even down to the fact that initially the sculpt for his head was frowning. He was going to be like,
Mhm.
and so we did all of this stuff, massaging the helmet, putting the different, we had different types of skulls, we had different texture patterns on the sides, we had different lengths of ear, and like I said, we had the ears back at one point. And then almost like right at the end of that, I was like, him frowning, like it doesn't really feel right. Like the character is so kind of immature and kind of like gleeful when he's fighting. Like he's
Mhm.
always making sarcastic comments, and like even when he says his like trademark catchphrases of like the man of a thousand fates or the demon who lives or any of these things, you feel like he's almost saying it sarcastically. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you want me to say the thing right
Like
now.
it's a pastiche of something else. What about the I've had just about enough of you? I hear that a lot in there. Is that from Star Trek 3? Because for years I've quoted it, me and my friends, I've had just about enough of
Enough
you.
of you.
And that's how I've read it every single time you've had a character say it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I'm a big Star Trek person. But some of those things I think are deliberate, and some of them they just kind of seep into your
yeah,
head.
right. They're just in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you just like you make something and then you look back on it and you're like, oh,
And maybe that
that's
was floating around in there.
yeah, totally.
This is just kind of a funny wrap up question because I'm genuinely curious. I tried a good old Google image search, but I really couldn't get anything. Have you had anybody at conventions cosplay Halloween Boy? Has anybody shown up dressed as Halloween Boy?
Look, I'm putting this out there. If you want to see old Davy Bakes cry, that's a good way to do it. No one has done it yet.
Listen, I feel like that Halloween Boy, which it's obvious now that I've spoken to you personally and read some of your essays, when I've seen some of the things that you like that are so specific to the things I love, that no wonder I'm so taken by the design of this character. But I was trying to research the other day about different ways to like put together like a Halloween Boy costume. And one of them, that the most difficult thing I've found, which I'm not really a sewing person necessarily, is when it comes to open face masks, almost none of them have a V. So
Hmm.
I thought leather strip that is a V attached to the back, almost like, like a tactical kind of thing. And then you put on the skull ornament and then you add like the thing on the side. So I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I really honestly, these are questions above my pay grade, but I will say my thought was always like the way the Deadpool masks work. I don't know if you're familiar, but like they're like three chunks. They're 3D printed chunks with magnets in them, and then the eyes are separate. So it's like
Mhm.
when you put it on, this area is all open, and then there's like a seam that goes down the back of his helmet, and that's where you clip in to make it one shape. And then you have two separate eye shapes with magnets in them that they click into the front of the mask. And
Mhm.
I had always assumed if I was ever fortunate enough to receive the honor of somebody cosplaying as Old Dirty HB, that that's what it would have to be. Like somebody would have had to custom sculpt and 3D print like a helmet that was like made for their head, because I don't know how you get that specific face shape without it. And I'm also assuming it's like the face shape would be the helmet, and then you would wear just like a normal domino mask.
Mhm.
I, the way I draw it, it's all one thing, but like I don't think that's a reality. Like I don't think that's
Right.
physically possible. It wouldn't actually be that hard to do. It's just a orange jumpsuit and then like paramilitary stuff.
Right. Web gear. And then
Yeah,
you pretty well, you've got that part. The pads and all that was dirt simple, for coming up with that stuff. But when it was just, this part having to get, this figured out. And then,
yeah.
once you have that, then you pretty well got it. I'm excited about the possibility of seeing that because I think once people start seeing it in that live action context, because you have the template right here, then I think that could lead to more people kind of considering, okay, well, what about the possibility of adapted media with this guy? Um, Dave, I want to be respectful of your time. And to end, I want to just ask if you have anything that you would like to talk about that you are working on currently, or allude to anything you are working on currently, just cheekily, or at least thinking about for the future, something to look out for.
Well, I'm working on some more comics right now. Obviously, I'm drawing the last little bit of Halloween Boy Volume 2. I think I'm wrapping up issue 13 right now. I've only published up to 7, but I've drawn up to 13, and that'll be the last one for a little bit. I don't know. I have to. I intended to do 4. Like that, the
Mhm.
first arc was supposed to be 4 issues,
Wow.
and then I just kept liking it, and honestly, it's been a real positive feedback loop of people being like, "Oh man, this character design is awesome. Like, what is this?"
Mhm.
I posted it on I have a TikTok and I post this is my comic or whatever, and uh, there's a couple of videos on there that've got like hundreds of thousands of views of just like people who don't know anything about comics being like, "This is really cool," and like that's such a it's such a novelty as someone who you know spends all their time alone at a drawing table. And yeah, I think it all just kind of is going to depend on how these collections do at Oni. So that in conjunction with the toys, and hopefully we can do some more toys. I don't know. But honestly, even if we don't, I'm so incredibly happy that this thing exists. He looks so perfect, and You know, I mean, I just can't complain. I mean, the fact that the Obeyer blade like exists in real life is just so, yeah, it's so nice. I don't know. It's a really positive thing.
I love your drawing of Dracula, by the way, in the beginning, like, you know, the little bio you created. That was a very pleasant surprise to see that you got to do the art for that and do the little write up and things. And honestly, I posited in my review, I was like, maybe Dave Baker needs to do like all the comic work for the storyline. But, you know, just put it out there.
The comic book artist that they have doing the other one's very talented. I can't remember his name right now.
Oh, it's great stuff. Absolutely. I love seeing your take, though. It really was fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I mean, I feel so fortunate that Workshop and Fresh Monkey and Bill and Mike and everybody over there has been really receptive to me being involved, and they've done really cool stuff that I, as a fan, I mean, you saw when I was jokingly holding up all those toys, half of them are Dracula toys. Like, you know, like I love Dracula and Frankenstein. I read those books like once a year, and I'm going to see a Frankenstein musical next week. Like, I'm a dork. Like, I love this stuff. I'm just so excited about what they're doing. I think it's really cool. I think the way they're engaging the fan base is really cool. I think the figures are super high quality, and I'm deeply honored that Halloween Boy is one of those people, you know. Even just the promotional stuff. Like, I don't know if you saw on Instagram a couple weeks ago or a week ago, they put a like photo of all the good guys together that's kind of like a Hellboy style photo where they're all like, they've all completed a mission and they're all like smiling and like posing together. And like, Halloween Boy's there holding the Obeyer blade, being like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" And I was like, "This is so fun. This is so cool."
I mean, it opens up the character to a whole new world. Thousands of people who wouldn't have known about him otherwise. For me, I'm so much in the action figure world that was the way that I found out about the character, and I'm so much better off for it. And thankful to you for not only giving me the opportunity for this interview, but also blessing us with this incredible series. This is just this is awesome. If I had one suggestion for anyone who enjoys the kinds of things that we do, if something they should be reading, it's Halloween Boy by far. It combines all those great science fiction tropes and all of those great heroes of yesteryear and monsters and all the things that, you know, we love for this culture. And it is just the most incredible book. So thank you. It truly has been an incredible, incredible experience reading it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. You know, I honestly like, you know, as an artist, I've learned that the energy you put out into the world comes back to you, which is something that's a little scary, you know, where you're like, let's say you're not in a good place and you're putting out, you know, not even consciously bad energy. I find that that really does come back to you. And Halloween Boy, despite being about some pretty transparent things, has been such a positive experience because I think people can see my genuine affection for these things, and also the fact that it is critical of so many of these things. It's kind of like a push and pull. And I meet so many people at conventions and even online who are just so positive and excited to talk with me. Yeah, I just got back from New York Comic Con last week, and so many people came up to me, and I had the figures on the table, obviously, but they were just like, "Oh, I saw the toy. I'm so excited, blah, blah, blah. Mine's going to be here next week, yada, yada." Like, it's such a, like, it's what you hope for, you know? It's really what you hope for. And I'm just trying to absorb it to the best that I can because I'm not the best at that, frankly. I'm always kind of on to the next thing. And it's really nice. You know, it's been really nice to talk to you. You had really great questions, and I really appreciate your insights into the character. I mean, the fact that you, like, in the first question pointed out the fact that, you know, orange is a prison jumpsuit. Like, I think that speaks highly of your analytical ability.
Thank you so much. And, you know, I cannot say enough just what a great experience this has been. We're all hoping for Frankenoid 2027, you know, 2027.
Yeah, man. Don't tell me you guys got to, you know, go into the Discord and Facebook groups or whatever. And
it's got to happen, man. It's got to happen. Frankenoid. That's got to be next.
I would love to. I think a Frankenoid guy and a little Dree Blazenby. I think that'd be all right.
I believe those would be incredible picks. Absolutely incredible. Well, Dave, I just want to thank you so much once again. and just appreciate everything you're doing. And of course, you are welcome back on Fanboys Forever at anytime you want to talk to us about anything you're doing or want to do an interview or anything. You just let me know, just get up with me, and I would be very happy to have you back on at any time I could.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, you have a wonderful evening, and hopefully we'll be seeing you again soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care, Dave.
See ya.
See you. Bye.